Hello, and thank you for attending this evening. My name is Nell Clausen, and I am the Voter Services Chair of the Local League of the League of Women Voters, U.S., a national nonpartisan nonprofit organization whose purpose is to promote the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We welcome both men and women. I want to underscore the primary tenet of our organization, nonpartisanship. In the 102 years since we were established, we have never endorsed or opposed a candidate or political party at any level of government. We are ardent about positions, not people. You may wonder why we are continuing to host candidate forums via Zoom rather than in person. As you may be aware, once again, rates of COVID cases are increasing. In addition, the League of Women Voters recorded increased citizen participation in candidate forums when they moved from in-person to Zoom. In some cases, audiences were up to 300% of our average in-person numbers. We are truly grateful and impressed by those of you who are participating in tonight's forum, to the candidates for your willingness and courage to run for office, to the audience for your involvement in the democratic process, and to the local league members who expend a great deal of time and energy to make these forums fair and informative. I hope you enjoyed the slideshow with important information about the league. If you missed it, please note it will run again at the end of the forum for about 5 minutes. And with that, I would like to introduce Norma Turner, the moderator this evening. Norma has moderated many forums for the league, and we do appreciate her volunteering to do this one for us this evening. Norma?
Thank you. Before we start, I have one glitch, Sarah. I can't get rid of this notice saying this meeting's being recorded. When I hit got it, it's blocking out half of my screen.
I don't see that.
You can get rid of it. Okay. Thank you. So thank you all for attending. And tonight we're going to have a two-part forum at 4:30. We're going to be having the Port Commissioners, and that is Connie Beauvais and Lee Witham. And before we start, I'm going to ask Bonnie to clarify what the rules are around time. All the questions and the introductories and the summary statements will all be 90 seconds. So Bonnie, if you want to just show how it's going to work.
Hi, I'm Bonnie, your timer for tonight's forum. Here's a demonstration of how the timing is going to work. After the moderator asks a question, each candidate will have the same amount of time to respond. Once a candidate begins speaking, I'll start the countdown timer. The timer begins with a purple background, and when there are 15 seconds remaining, the background turns yellow. When time is up, the background is red, and the word stop appears. Candidates may finish their sentence, but then they need to stop. And tonight, Lee will be getting a verbal reminder since he does not have video capabilities. Thank you for staying within the time limits. And now back to Norma.
Thank you, Bonnie. So tonight we, as our press release stated, that we have had questions submitted online, which will be asked. So unfortunately, those of you who are listening in will not have an opportunity to ask a question. But if you want to know more about what the candidates believe, in addition to what they say tonight, you can go check out 411.org, where the candidates have all answered questions that may not be asked here tonight. And also this will be available to the public via the League's website, but give us a few days to get that signed up. Okay, so what is the role of a Port Angeles Commissioner? Commissioners develop and adopt Port District policies to implement Port goals and govern the many facets of Port District operations. These include developing guidelines for long-term economic development, establishing positions and employment policies, and adopting budgets. In Washington State, we have 75 port districts. Some of them do not have what we would consider a traditional port. Some of them are actually in the middle of Eastern Washington. So tonight I'd like to introduce you to our two candidates, Connie Beauvais and Lee Witham, and we thank both of you for running. I know being a candidate is not an easy thing, and we appreciate that you're willing to put yourself forward. So we're going to start by each of the candidates giving an introductory statement, and it will with a 90-second time limit. So Connie, will go in alphabetical order, and so you'll be first. So you're on.
Thank you, Norma, and thank you to the League for this opportunity this evening. I've had the honor to represent District 3 and the county as a whole these past 8 years as Port Commissioner. You know, the port plays a very important role in our community. While ports were established to stop monopolies on community waterfronts, our port is able to support itself without taxpayer money for operating funds and using excess port operating funds and tax revenue, create infrastructure to provide more prosperity wage jobs for the county's residents. We have made it the port's mission to provide the environment and infrastructure that create job opportunities for the long term. To meet our mission, I believe we need to continue diversifying and developing the port's lines of business. We need to continue developing barging opportunities, develop the Marine Trade Center, support value-added wood opportunities, determine our tenant and customer workforce deficits, and collaborate to provide those training opportunities, develop more industrial space at the airport. We also need to continue to support broadband needs in our county and collaborate with other agencies to fill those empty spaces, and continue to be a leader in the Western Harbor cleanup. I look forward to our conversation today and ask you to support me again in my reelection bid. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. And now Lee, you have 90 seconds for an introductory comment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, League of Women Voters, and thanks for the invitation. In 1992, Congress passed the Elwha Restoration Act with the intent of a fully restored river and its fisheries. For the past 30 years, each side of the aisle has had an opportunity to fix this river system and its tributaries by law. We are now 8 years past this initial 5-year restoration promise from Congress, and with your help, I'd like to bring this across the finish line. With our Port District having legislative authority with economic development, I believe this can be done through working for all countywide business that has been financially impacted during this river shutdown of 13 years now. From motels to restaurants, gas stations to grocery stores, including our sport, tribal, and commercial fishing industries. Our children deserve better. I'm all in on trying to make a difference for all. Please vote Lee Whittam, candidate for District 3, Port of Port Angeles. Let's do this for our community.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll proceed to the questions. And as I say, we will have you answer them in rotating order. At any time, if you want me to repeat a question, please do so. So we're going to start with Lee Whittam with the first question. Washington Public Ports Organization says that ports are the only public agency whose primary purpose is economic development. Affordable housing is a critical component of economic development, as seen by both the City of Port Angeles and Clown County Commissioners' efforts. And in a recent public forum, affordable housing was listed as a priority need for our local hospital. So the question is, what is the port doing, or what should it do, to help with the local efforts to promote affordable housing? So Lee, you're first for 90 seconds.
Thank you, Norma. I don't think the port has a role here, unlike my opponent. I've actually, if anybody remembers the movie Sleepless in Seattle, I've plumbed a couple of those houses over there on Lake Union in my early days of plumbing back in the 1980s, as a matter of fact, before the movie was even filmed. So that's a developed anchorage. It has docks, it has all the underwater sewer, water, everything is done up to code. I don't think we have enough waterfront or money to develop something similar to Lake Union. I don't know, I'm all ears for suggestions, but I don't see a path forward with the limited amount of space the port owns. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Connie, the same question. Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Since the port's the only public agency whose primary purpose is economic development, And affordable housing is a critical component of economic development. So both the city and the county are working on that. And our hospital administration has said that's a priority need for them, is to have affordable housing available. So what is the port doing or should be doing to work with these other local efforts to help promote affordable housing?
Well, thank you, Norma. You're exactly right. That is not within our realm to build housing, but we as a port, we've talked about this. This is at the very forefront of the issues in our county and across the whole country in looking at jobs. So with affordable housing, what the port can do is help provide those jobs that have a good wage with them so that they can afford housing. There are housing developments being done. I know there's a lot being done over in Squim right now, but the cost of housing has just really escalated from the permits to the building to everything. So we really want the port to be that economic driver to create those job opportunities so people can actually afford housing. We've also worked, we were able to get legislation through a couple of years ago for ports to be able to provide job training for workforce. And so we're working with our tenants and customers to see where we need to provide those job opportunities, and then working with different agencies, with the companies and with the community college to do that training again so people can better themselves, so they can better afford housing. Another very important thing in my mind is that the port needs to be part of the county and each city's comprehensive planning that's coming up. We need to make sure that we have enough industrial space. We need to make sure we have enough housing development area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Connie, you're first for the next question. Washington State Department of Transportation will be replacing the culvert on Tumwater Creek under Marine Drive as part of the federal court order to remove state-owned culverts that block habitat for salmon and steelhead, and it needs to be done in 2023. That's here. The question is this: will you support improving the habitat in the channelized portion of the creek on port property adjacent to the culvert?
Yes. The port plays a really important part in bettering our environment. That's part of our goal, although it's not clearly stated. We know that restoration is going to take place. And yes, we have been working closely with Department of Transportation and the city to make sure that we are still able to move goods at the water line across that area during the restoration and after. So yes, the port has been playing a very active role in that culvert replacement. Thank you for that question.
Okay. And Lee, you're up. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thank you,
Okay.
Norma. What I'd like to state is that I'm in full support of all fisheries restoration efforts. Problem is where's the money coming from? So under my plan, if I'm elected, I would use that hopefully through my county resident committee that will make recommendations to the Port Commission on how to address the loss to area business for the last 13 years of fishing that's been shut off again from the Elwha River. So the future is there if I can get help. Thank you.
Okay. And so for the third question, Lee, you'll be first. The question is, marinas and other communities have done a much better job of developing a vibrant mix of marina, retail, and commercial outlets to the benefit of the community. What will you do to improve the area around the Boat Haven Marina? There are some ideas such as improving security, or perhaps allowing RV parking there during the tourist season, or developing other uses. So that's just a way to get the conversation started. So Lee, you're on.
Yes, absolutely. So I was trying to work out something, and in the process, while I served on city council, there's a bunch of different federal rules that prohibit inside fisheries from using for for example, I tried to get like a fish dock on City Pier that would go in tune with the farmer's market. But the only fish that I am aware of had to come from the ocean, had to be transported the entire length of the Strait of Juan de Fuca in order to be there for the weekend local fresh fish buyers. So we've got to work on regulations about that. There's no reason whatsoever, in my opinion, that if a fish caught locally, commercially or tribally, can't be sold in a public setting outside of the harbor, of course, because of the still
30 seconds.
Yeah, because of the cleanup efforts that are still have yet to be undertaken, I should add. This was a big controversy back in 2015 when I was last really swirling in politics. Thank you.
Thank you. And so Connie, you're next. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I have it. Thank you, Norma.
Right.
First of all, I want to talk just a moment about John Wayne Marina over in Sequim, the blue gem of our whole county. And that is a beautiful marina, and it is primarily recreational. There are some tribal vessels over there. There's a couple of commercial vessels. And in talking to the public a couple of years ago, they did not want to see anything else happen down there. They really wanted it left in that kind of park-like and marina setting. And we're happy to do that. We may look at it again in the future to see if there needs to be any other changes. But over at Boat Haven, that is our working marina. And that's just what it is. It not only houses the community boating program and everything that they do and the Sea Scouts, but it has commercial fishermen from most of the tribes around the area, and then our recreational boats too. We've made it a priority to kind of clean up the boat yard, the do-it-yourself yard, and we did add a building there for people to rent to do work there. There's over 15 little businesses that come to support work done on boats in the Boat Haven. We have cleaned up the waterfront out there, and we're looking to put small buildings out there, at least in the future, for some retail things, whether it's a coffee shop, and get some other, we've had fishing companies in there before where people can go in and buy fish. That's important too. I could talk a long time on it, but my time's up.
Thank you. So on the fourth question, Connie, you'll be first.
Okay.
When will the Port's Marine Trade Industrial Park, which was previously the K-Ply site, become operational with new tenants? And what kind of tenants will you be seeking?
Okay, well, we are in the last year right now of monitoring for the cleanup for that site. You can, if you go down there, you see ecology blocks and these white pipes sticking up, and that's where we do our monitoring for Department of Ecology, and that will continue for years. We have just finished, we're looking at the initial plan that's been proposed by staff and consultants for where buildings are going to go. We've been talking to local marine trades businesses who are interested in being an anchor tenant or have a building down there, but no one has said yet that I'm ready to pull the trigger, I'm ready to submit plans, or I want you, the port, to build the building, or we're going to build it and just lease the raw land. We are not going to put in any utilities or fill the hole until we do get an anchor tenant, so we know exactly where the utilities need to go. When it's going to be operational, it's going to be another probably 3 or 4 years. We're just finishing up the design work right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And so Lee, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, Norma, this actually came up during our last, I believe it was Rotary, a week or two ago. So no, I'd like to address that. So it still needs site development. There's no underground utilities. You got to think about how things are done in the real world, not at government level. When someone develops a portion of property, they establish property lines, they establish utility routing that will serve future tenants in this case, but you provide that up front because in order to put all of these utilities in that we're talking about that each of these businesses will need, you've got to have that for a hookup point. So I don't understand, other than a lack of funding and site development, why the utilities aren't installed first. I've made my living in this construction world for over 40 years, so I'm very familiar with site development, and we seem to differ on that point.
30
So,
seconds.
Bigger was a big company from the Gulf of Mexico clear to Mexico, or Gulf of Mexico to Alaska. So they had a company sale recently. This is a very limited market for these big companies, so we are out of the loop right now with Vigor supposedly have left our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so Lee, you'll be first for the next question.
Okay.
What will you do to support recreational and youth boating activities on and around port property? And so Lee, you're first.
Well, that's right up my alley. Thank you, Norma. I've actually been a part-time renter from the port for over 10 years now. I currently have my boat in the water right now. I'm a big proponent of fishing. I only fish Marine Area 6, which is all in front of Port Angeles, as well as halfway over, well, actually, no, all in front of Squim, half of Port Townsend. So I fish a wide area in Marine Area 6 off, again, our shores. I love it, and I really find I need to go fishing once in a while. I'm sure everyone there can appreciate those comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, since you have 30 seconds left, Lee, did you want to address the second half of the question about youth boating activities?
I don't understand that part of the question, Norma.
Oh, okay. All
I,
right. So, all right. So
I do my
Go ahead.
fishing, and I'm totally happy.
All right. Okay. So Connie, do you want me to repeat the question? I can't hear you. Somehow you're on
Oh,
mute.
I don't know. I muted myself. Yes, please.
You did. Okay. The question is, what will you do to support recreational and youth boating activities in and around the port property?
Oh, youth.
Oh, well, recreational boating. We provide slips down there for recreational boating. I try to attend as many of the yacht club Friday evening events as I can, and I always look forward in the fall to going down and judging the Christmas lights. But one of my big things is the youth programs down there. I have been a very staunch supporter of the Sea Scouts. I'm always there at all of their celebrations and getting them funding, community partnership funding for different projects that they're working on. They are really the youth of the Coast Guard. And you could call them the pre-Coast Guard or the youth of the Coast Guard, which is something that's dear to my heart. And they have got 2 vessels down there now that they're working with. And this gives the kids an opportunity to learn about leadership and working on the water, working on vessels. And they even get credit if they want to go into the military, they'll get credit for their time as Sea Scouts. The community boating program has been huge, and there is one special lady who I see is online here. She knows who she is, who's just really made this whole program just kind of jump out of the water, and I give her such huge kudos for it, because the water out there is a whole different world, and it's important to get people to learn about water and being safe around water. And I absolutely fully support all of those programs with our community partnership program. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Okay, and so now the next question, Connie, you'll be the lead off. So the Field Arts Center and the proposed Faro Marine Life Center and the Lower Elwha Clallam planned log house are significant upgrades to the waterfront. Will you be supporting ways to improve the port property to make it more attractive for visitors as part of this major upgrade to the waterfront?
So let me get a clarification on that question first, Norma. Are you talking about the area between Tumwater and Red Lion, or are you talking about the industrial area? So I know what I'm answering.
You know, I didn't write the question, but I'm assuming that they are meaning to go west of where the all that development will be, like the Faro Marine Lab and all those, because what is west of what's east of those is already pretty well developed. I mean, you've got the city improved the downtown, and then you've got the Discovery Trail. And so I think the areas they're looking at for improvement, I would assume, would be west of the area where all of these entities are going to be developing.
Okay. So, you know, the port used to own property all the way down to Red Lion Inn, and we in fact built the wharf out there that those businesses are on, and the port owns Black Ball Ferry, that's terminal number 2. And then we have our industrial area to the west. I think what this question is really about is terminal 4, and that is the little working terminal that's right off of the Field Arts Center. And yes, I was looking at that just last weekend with the port's executive director when we were down visiting with the Big Hurt. And that area needs to be prettied up, shall I say. And so we're working with our tenant to not just camouflage, but to try to get that hidden so that it's not in the viewscape from the Field Arts Center. And I think that that's what the question's addressing. Farther west, we are working, it does take time you have to wait for a lease to run out in order to get a building back so that you can renovate it or tear it down. We have put in public restrooms out there as well as a laundry area. And those are really helping the area. We still have a long ways to go. We've got a lot of things to cover, but I think the question was addressing our terminal number 4. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you. It's difficult when I didn't create the question to know
Right.
exactly what they mean, so I'm making some assumptions.
Okay.
Lee, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I have a area description in my mind. I'd like to start the answer. So I do know in that immediate vicinity beside the new Performing Arts Center, there's a dock right there, and it has loading and unloading capabilities. Who can use it? I don't know, but I've seen boats there a few times of the year when I'm in the water also that utilize that. So again, that's part of the working port thing. I would, applaud the commissioners' efforts to do some cleanup with their boatyard fix-up that they've done, but actually right now there's a clear and present danger within the boatyard, and that's where they've got these large fishing boats, I believe, that have been repossessed by the port, but they're exposed to public without having any ecology block, where someone, maybe 3 men could rip out a support and there'd be a 30-ton fishing boat laying on its side. So I'd like something done to that immediately.
30 seconds.
My pleas and my questions during a port commission meeting are never answered or are never replied to. So I'll use this forum to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the next question, Lee, you are first up. So the question is 2-part. How long should the port subsidize Dash Air? And the second part is, and what are the next steps if Dash Air is not successful?
To be honest, Dash Air has been on the books or on paper for close to over 2 years, from my knowledge. So I'm actually surprised they haven't ran out of money yet, and yet they proceed to walk down the path and use that federal grant with a little bit of matching port money. So I'm a proponent for having CPI added to all leases. And again, I made that comment during a public comment period, Port of Port Angeles, in front of the commissioners. So until I get in there, nothing towards that end, I don't think will be resolved. Thank you.
Okay, so Lee, for the audience, can you please tell us what CPI is?
The Consumer Price Index, for example, when I spoke about this during the last civic meeting, Connie and I both were in attendance at, for example, let's bring this home. I hate to admit it, but I now get Social Security, and we get a cost of living allowance added to our Social Security. So in every year that the port does not add that on, a Consumer Price Index cost, they're actually going backwards with who and what they're subsidizing. So that part makes no business sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Connie, you want me to repeat the question?
No, I haven't, Norma. Thank you. Well, first of all, it's unfortunate that Lee has only looked at one lease, and that was the Dash lease, because if he'd looked at the many others that we have, CPI is built in. How long should the port subsidize Dash Air? Well, the port is doing everything to get Dash Air off the ground. I am surprised that they are still hanging in there with the lawsuit that was against them and the slowness of FAA and COVID and everything to get them certified to be able to fly. They're training their people right now, and hopefully they're going to be off the ground in just a very short time. We were able to get a grant from the federal government, and they have let it have advanced the start time for it each year. But that particular grant is for over $300,000 that can be used to make up the difference, if there's any at all, between the cost of a ticket and the cost of operating the flights. We hope that will last for 3 years. We will see. The port's contribution to that is $122,000. That's taking out of our operating funds. We are giving them free space up at the airport, free parking, free landing. We're doing everything we can to get them off the ground. If they stay in the air is really going to be up to the public and how often they use those flights. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the next question, Connie, you are first up. Public access to the water from port property in Port Angeles is limited. What do you think can be done to improve public access on port property to the water?
Well, first of all, we have the marinas that provides access. And like I said, the port turned over a lot of its land to the city, which has created a really great waterfront that is east of the creek down there. And there's several beaches down there too. This is an industrial area that is to the west, where we have log trucks, we have huge log piles. It's dangerous out there, and it's not a proper place for people to be able to walk during work hours or even really afterward. We've got public access places at other locations, and of course, John Wayne Marina over in Squim too, where there's a nice park area and people can get down to the water. If you want to launch a kayak over in Squim, you can do it either from the marina or from the I'll call it the grassy knoll. And in Port Angeles, of course, we have ramps down to the water where people can put their kayaks in. The boat ramp, I've walked out on that little dock quite a number of times and watch the seals and watch people on their kayaks and their paddle boards. So there's appropriate places for recreation and there's safe places for recreation, but in the heavy industrial log yard area, that is not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee, you're next. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, Norma. So I'd like to start off with, again, referencing that I have been a part-time port user in the Port Angeles Boat Haven for 10 years now this summer. So the port has recently started a locked gate all 24/7 to the dock entrances on the west side of the marina. I don't know about the east side. I've got no business over there on those docks, but without a key, the public's not going to go down there or be specifically invited by a marina guest. So that part is, to my knowledge, 100% locked off from the general public. They have made some improvements along the on the hard over there where their boat storage is now. There is that access. I do feel that that's right, that the public should be excluded from the working area because of the dangers and liabilities to the port
30 seconds.
were anything to happen. So, but there's some other property over there further to the west. I don't believe that that's got any access at all. It's got a lot of gates and fences in the way. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so the next question, Lee, you are first up. The log yard in Port Angeles doesn't provide substantial revenue for the community or the port, but it does occupy a huge expanse of the industrial waterfront. What is your vision for the future of the log handling yard?
The log handling yard, as long as it's economically feasible for not only the port, but also the timber producers, sellers, and traders. This is an international volatile market right now. Look at the prices at our local lumberyard. That's occurring at the base of every log part in the sales system. So we've got to be able to follow that. So until I hear something that makes more money versus the log, I'm in full support of that. I see that as a moneymaker. We have to look at the history of our county also. We're living in timber country. Thank you.
And Connie, you're next. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
So the log yard has historically been the bread and butter with all of the log activity that used to happen in our harbor. We used to have ships lined up where they were craning logs onto ships from the water. And there's still ramps down there off of where the Lovelies used to park there at going toward the harbor master's office, where they used to pull logs up out of the water and even dump them into the water to get them onto ships. We don't have that market anymore. And the little market that is left is pretty cyclical. So what do we need looking into the future to help support our community and provide transportation for goods on and off port property across that water interface? We are looking at not just providing a service to the water over the water for the log services that we've always provided. We're going to continue that at whatever level it needs to be. But I really believe, and in fact, we have renamed that. We don't call it the log yard anymore. We call it the intermodal and transfer facility. And we're looking into the future of barging opportunities to be able to move goods in and out on barges, and maybe even bring some containers in and out on ships, and use that whole area, or a lot of that area down there, to move goods back and forth over the water that way instead of on our highways.
Thank you. Okay, and now for the final question, Connie, you will be first. The port owns vacant land. What do you have some ideas of what you would like to see done with it?
So I guess that's a question, and we'll have to see how so vacant land. We have a lot of vacant land up at the airport. There are some wet areas where we cannot do anything. And there are other areas there around the airport that we are developing. Part of it is used as a log storage yard right now, but we are looking at developing up to 25 acres of industrial land up there over the next, let's say 5 years. That's what's in our 5-year mission. And I seriously think we're going to get there. An even bigger issue is the lack of industrial zoned acreage across this county. There's very, very little of it. And that's why I think it's vitally important that the port be involved in the comprehensive planning at the county and the city's level so that we can get more industrial zoned property. we are doing the best we can, but with limited power being provided right now by the city of Port Angeles, we need to look to other areas to be able to put industrial areas in. That includes Squim, that includes Forks. We've done a lot of development in the Carlsberg area, and all of those businesses are over there now. Very few people know that the port did that development over there in the Carlsberg industrial area. So we need more industrial land across the county. And my time is up again.
The clock does keep ticking.
It does.
Okay, and so this is your final question here, and Lee, you want me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, Norma. I'd like to begin. Thank you. I'd like to see a waterfront salmon hatchery go in on port property inside the harbor, using the industrial water supply from the Elwha River. The new pipelines being installed right now, the new HDPE piping. Let's imprint these fish, let them go to sea, and let them come back. Maybe we could have it set up so that we get a special harbor fishery in return for those 13 years of lost fishing opportunity. I don't know how this will work out in the future. It's going to be a negotiation between the tribe, the state, and the federal government. But I'd like to also have that on the table and have the opportunity to suggest that that hatchery go in on some unoccupied port property. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the end of our questions. And so now we're going to move into summary comments. And in the spirit of taking turns, we're going to have Lee be first. So Lee, you have 90 seconds to give us a summary.
Great. Thank you again, Norma. I've learned a lot in local politics. Through it all, I've tried to do the best for the most. This is the last public office position I will ever run for in our community on the Olympic Peninsula. I have no further political ambitions than try to fix something I've spent my entire life doing when I wasn't chasing dollars around, and that's fishing. I'm not saying I won't run again for Port Commissioner of District 3. I'm saying I have no intentions of ever running for State House or Senate position from here in the 24th Legislative District. To be clear, I will continue to support our timber, aviation, maritime, and civic groups going forward as your new Port Commissioner. Through local politics, our problems need to be addressed by local politicians, then handed up to higher levels of government to be resolved through enacted laws or financial compensation. Just like the City of Port Angeles did during my time in office, where we reviewed the city's industrial water plant operational costs, this action ended as the city was able to negotiate a settlement with Congress for the misrepresented industrial water plant design and build. I need your voice when our elections start October 20th this year. Vote Lee Whittam for District 3, Port of Port Angeles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so Connie, your summary statement.
Okay, for the past 15 years, I have managed and served as a state certified operator of one of the largest nonprofit drinking water systems in the state of Washington. I served as a Clallam County Planning Commissioner for 8 years, leaving as chair, where I was able to work on tasks to include the County Shoreline Master Program and transportation improvement projects. I was elected to and served on the county's Charter Review Commission, and I've been a member of many organizations in the county. I've worked in the public arena, private and nonprofit sectors, owned my own businesses, worked at a marina, and served 5 years as a Coast Guard auxiliarist. I have been a strong advocate of and will continue to work to diversify and strengthen the port's lines of business by developing the Marine Trade Center, working on workforce training, completing stormwater improvements on the port's marine uplands, renovating the coffer dam, and continuing to be a leader in the Western Harbor cleanup. Seeing port industrial land developed at the airport and around the county, and pushing forward green initiatives to make your port more environmentally friendly and our harbor cleaner. I'm running for re-election as Port Commissioner because I want a prosperous county, and our port is the economic driver that can get us there. I'll continue to use my background in administration, finance, personnel, and community relations to make our port work for you. I ask for your vote again this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you both for participating, and thank you for your willingness to run for public office. We need all sorts of candidates out there. And I want to remind those who are watching that ballots will be mailed out October 18th, and they must be returned by November 7th. I also want to thank, we're sort of going to transition now to another forum, which will start in a few minutes. But meanwhile, I want to remind you that you can go to 411.org to find out the answers to not only these candidates, but a lot of other candidates that are running for a variety of offices. Also want to thank Sarah at the Olympic Library System, and she'll stick with us for the rest of the day. And I don't know how many you're aware of PAPA, which is Peninsula Area Public Access. And if you Google that, you'll find that they have YouTubes of different events around the community, and they will have this video up and running shortly. I don't know what that means, but pretty soon. So if you want to have some friend who didn't get to watch today, they can watch it on Papa. You also you could go to LWVCLA.org, and that will give you a link to a YouTube where you can watch this debate. And that, again, will be up shortly. So what we're going to do in transitioning between this part of the forum and the second part is we will take a break for just a couple minutes, and then we're going to put up the League PowerPoint again so you can see that, and then we'll start again, and you can hear from Nell and from Bonnie. And the next half of the forum will include 6 candidates for Sequim City Council. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to learn. And right now, why don't we just, in a couple minutes, Sarah, go ahead and put up the video. Thank you.